Hello, everybody. Ooh, that was echoey. Hello, everybody. We're so glad that you could be here today, that you could join us. Awesome. Well, hey, everybody, we're so glad that you could join us tonight for youth group, especially you guys at JSC. So glad that you could be here. It's awesome. So we're going to be finishing up our series called Essentials this week by talking about courage. Now, when I say the word courage, what do you think about? See, when I hear the word courage, I think of two things. The first one is the Cowardly Lion from Wizard of Oz, and the second one is Courage the Cowardly Dog from the 90s cartoon. Now, these are two vastly different characters, but have similar aspects to them. One is from a really, really, really old movie, and one is from a 90s cartoon, which is getting relatively old. But that's beside the point. Both are cowardly. They have aspects where they're both timid, they're both unsure of themselves, and pretty much everything frightens them. Yet, there's times where they are courageous because when it comes down to it, they have something more that they want. See, with the Cowardly Lion, his entire goal of the movie is to get to the wizard to get courage. Yet when Dorothy is kidnapped and taken by the Wicked Witch, if you've ever seen the movie, he fights with everything that he has to get her back. And he fights the terrifying flying monkeys, which terrified me as a kid. But he has courage to do that. And then Courage the Cowardly Dog, if you've ever watched it, he's scared of everything. Yet when Mariel and Eustace are taken by an alien or a weird monster or something, he has enough courage to go and save them. Even though he's terrified, he still does it. And so tonight, like I said, we're going to be talking about courage, and we all have things that we're afraid of. See, the definition of courage is the ability to do something that frightens one. It is strength in the face of pain, grief, or fear. See, now those were just movies and TV shows, and even if you watch TV or movies today, there's always that underdog in most of them, where you're cheering on because there's a big bad villain, and they stand up to him, even though they're like, this is impossible, and they still do it, and you're like, yay! But in the movies, it makes it look so easy and so simple to do. But it's really not. I mean, like I said, we all have something that we're kind of afraid of, and it's hard to jump into action when that fear is facing you down. And so, for me, one of the things that I've always been terrified of and was finally able to overcome, and I think most guys will agree with this, it's asking a girl out on a date. It's pretty intimidating. Girls, let's be honest. You're scary when a guy likes you. Like, you're the most terrifying thing in the world. So when a guy asks you out, kind of applaud them, even if you don't like them, because it takes a lot to do that. For most guys. Now, there's some guys that it's easy breezy for them. For me, it was terrifying. Now, for those that don't know, I am recently, or not recently, but I am engaged and about to be married here in about a month. And so I want to tell you about the first time I asked my fiancée, Haley, out. Kind of a little bit of backstory. She wanted to get to know me, and so she talked to a couple of mutual friends that we had, and they started encouraging me to ask her out. Now, I was terrified. And I mean, I'm literally sitting there, and they're going, this is a guaranteed she's going to say yes, just ask her out. And I'm sitting there going, that's scary. I'm not sure. Are you sure it's going to be a yes? We are 100% sure it's a yes. Are you sure? So it gets to the point where our offices used to actually be right next to our West location. She was helping put some packets together. And a couple of my friends, they're encouraging me. They're like, just go ask her out. Just do it. It'll be okay. She's going to say yes. You have to do it. You need to do it today. So finally, I work up the courage to go ask her out. And then after being escorted over to the office so that I don't chicken out, I walk in very awkwardly and ask her out. Probably the second most awkward moment in my life. because I walk in and I say, hey, what are you doing Thursday? And she's like, I don't know. What are you doing? I'm working. And she didn't know that I was asking her out, and it was great and awkward. Eventually, she got the point that I was trying to ask her out on a date, and she said yes. The first most awkward moment was actually when we were on our date. She will tell you that I said 25 words the entire date, which is a complete, utter lie. I said 27. But needless to say, it all worked out. Like I said, we're going to be getting married here in a month. But it took a lot of courage for me to ask her out because that was something that terrified me. Now, courage looks different to a lot of different people because, well, we're all terrified of different things. For some, walking into a crowded room takes a lot of courage because of anxiety that they have. They don't like being around big crowds. For somebody else, skydiving is something that takes courage because they're like, no, you're jumping out of a plane thousands of feet in the air. No. So courage looks different to everybody. But tonight we're going to be talking about a guy who in the beginning didn't have a lot of courage, and his name was Gideon. And so in the Old Testament, he was a character in the Old Testament, and I'm going to give you a little backstory. We're going to go through his story, but it's going to take a while to get through his story, so we're going to kind of jump to different parts and different pieces. But Gideon, when we first see him, he is actually in a hole doing work that is not done in a hole, mainly because he's terrified because he is from Israel, and the nation of Israel is under attack by a group called the Midianites. And so he's hiding in a hole doing some work because he's afraid that they'll come out and attack him. And so that's when we first see him, and going into Judges 6 is where we will pick up. It says, the Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength that you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Pardon me, Lord, Gideon replied, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. The Lord answered, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. So here we see Gideon terrified. Actually, he's sitting there, and the Lord's like, hey, you're going to go do this great thing. You're going to take care of the Midianites. You're going to save all of Israel. And he's going, say, what? And he begins to explain out how that's not possible because, well, I'm the weakest my family's the weakest in my clan, and I'm the weakest in my family. And what that would mean is a clan would basically be your extended family and a few other groups of extended families. You were kind of banded together and kind of a little community. And he's going, my clan is the weakest in the entire area, and I am the least in my family. I'm the lowest of low. There's no way that I can do any of this. See, Gideon he's equating his status to what he can do. He's letting his circumstances define who he can be and who he can't be. He's saying, I'm the weakest, I'm the least, there's no way I can do this. And there are times in our lives when we do the same exact things to ourselves. Where we go, I can't do that because I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not cool enough to go do this because people will make fun of me, or I just won't be able to accomplish it and I don't want to fail. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let those circumstances around me define what I can and cannot do, even though I may want to. See, society even plays a part in this where they say, if you have enough money, you can go and do whatever you want. If you're strong enough, you can do whatever you want. If you're good looking enough, you can do whatever you want. And so this is what we're being told, and this is beginning to what we believe about ourselves. To where we start playing the if only game, as I like to call it. Well, if only I had enough money, I could go do this. If only I was good enough, I could go and be on the baseball team. If only I was good looking enough, I could go talk to this person. If I was strong enough, I could stand up to this person. The thing you have to understand, though, is courage isn't found in status. Our status of who we are doesn't define where we can go, what we can do. But what it does is the passions that we have inside of us, the things that we want the most, our desires, those help define who we are. Those are the ones that go and take us to that next step. But most of all, courage, it comes from what we believe in. It comes from where we put our faith. And so Gideon, he was at first believing that his courage came from his status, that his courage came from where he sat in his family and where he sat in the country amidst his clan. But then he has an angel, God, coming and saying, no, you're going to do this, and I'm going to be by your side every step of the way. And so in that moment, Gideon, he changes his mindset to where his courage is no longer found in his status. And he chooses to follow what God is asking him to do. And so Gideon decides, okay, God, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get together this huge army, and we're going to take on the Midianites. So let's do it. And that's kind of where we pick up in the story. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me, saying, my own strength has saved me. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. But the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If I say, this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So Gideon took the men down to the water. There the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as dogs from those who kneel down to drink. 300 of them drank from the cupped hands, lapping like dogs. All of the rest got down on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. So Gideon goes, says, all right, I've got 32,000 men. And this army of the Midianites, yeah, they're really big. They're really, really big. And with 32,000, we might be able to win. We might be able to pull this off. And God says, no, you've got too many. Too many? How do I have too many? He says, if they're scared, tell them to go home. Tell them it's okay. Just go home. Go be with their families. No problem. So 22,000 men leave. So he's like, all right, I've got 10,000. God, you better be working a miracle, like, for us to win. Still have too many. What? You still have too many. So here, if they drink a certain way, they stay. If they drink a different way, they go home. So he's left with 300 men. 300 men to take on an army of tens of thousands of men. I don't know about you, I would be terrified. Not only that, I would be thinking, this Gideon is kind of wacko. How are 300 of us supposed to take on tens of thousands? This doesn't make sense. But you see here that Gideon is following what God is asking, despite what's going on. The status of the numbers, the comfort of the numbers, he's going, no, that's not what's important. What's important is we have God on our side. He's confident in what God is asking him to do. He's confident in God's plan. And that's the next thing. Courage, it takes confidence. A lot of times we think courage and confidence are the same thing, that they're equal to each other, which isn't true. Because courage, as we read before, is the ability to face what frightens us, to stand up to what frightens us. Now, confidence, I lost that one. Confidence is the ability to, or the belief or feeling that one can rely on someone or something. It is a firm trust. So confidence is a firm trust. And see, while courage is doing something that frightens you, you're trusting in something is where you get your confidence. So Gideon right now is saying, I am trusting God. I'm taking that step. I am trusting that God knows what he's doing and God has a plan. See, when we follow God and we put our trust and we put our confidence in him, he's going to give us courage. When I was a teenager, when I was your guys' age, God called me to go into ministry. And at the time, I said no. The reason why is public speaking was a huge fear of mine. In fact, public speaking, I would get up in front of my class of 20 students and almost hyperventilate because I had to give a science report. I was terrified. I could barely do it. It was something I didn't want to do. And yet God is going, I want you to be a pastor. Well, being a pastor means you got to speak in front of people. Eventually, I decided to trust what God was doing. I decided that God's plan was going to be better than anything else I thought of. And so I decided to become confident in what God was doing and follow and go into ministry. And so, what did God do? He gave me the courage to come up and stand in front of my fear and get rid of it. 2 or 10 years ago, if you asked me to do this and speak in front of everybody, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would flat out refuse and say no. There's going to be times in your life when you're going to come up to something that you're afraid of, that you don't know what to do, where you don't know where to go. But if you're confident in what God is asking you to do, he's going to get you through it. For a lot of you, it may be moving away from home. You're terrified. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where to go or anything. But if you know that God is calling you to do it, he's going to give you the courage to get through it. He's going to give you that courage. He's going to give you the strength to walk wherever he wants you to go and wherever you need to go. Your courage, it takes confidence and being confident in what God is doing and being confident that God is behind you and he's going to see you through to the end. So Gideon is confident that God is going to help them lead the victory, that he's going to help them defeat the Midianites. He may not fully understand. He's going, this is weird. I've got 300 men and there's tens of thousands of people that I have to defeat. God, this is all you, God. And he's putting all of his trust into God. Continuing on in the story, when Gideon was getting prepared to go into the battle, what he did is he snuck into the camp just to hear what was going on, and he heard some men talking about a dream. And in this dream, they said, God is going to hand us over to Israelites, and we're going to be defeated. This is what the Midianites said. And so here, this is where we pick up. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshiped. He returned to the camp of Israel and called out, "Get up, the Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." Dividing the 300 into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars into the hands of all of them with torches inside. "Watch me," he told them. "Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp blow yours and shout, for the Lord and for Gideon." The 3 companies blew the trumpets and smashed the jars. Grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow, they shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." While each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. Here we see Gideon following through with the plan that God laid out and being victorious because he had enough courage to follow what God was asking him to do. He had the courage to stand up to a mighty army with 300 men, torches, and trumpets to defeat them. And he did this because he had confidence and faith in God. His courage didn't come from the numbers. His courage didn't come from the men that he had around him. His courage came from his faith in God. And that's what courage is. Courage is us living out our faith in God. It's us saying, God, I'm going to follow you. It's us saying, God, your plans are better than mine. Don't always know what they are. But I know that your interests are better than my own. Sometimes that's a hard step to take, guys. That's a hard step to fully put your trust into God. Sometimes it means getting rid of the things that are around you that make you feel comfortable. Gideon had to get rid of thousands of men. The security that brought when going into battle, no longer there. Maybe for you that's giving up friends in your life that are leading you down a bad path. Maybe that's you choosing to leave a situation that's pulling you away from God. And sometimes that's pretty frightening. Sometimes we're afraid to do that because of what people will think, of what people will say. But our courage is us living out our faith in God. Even when it seems crazy, when we put our faith in God, we follow him, he's going to give us the courage to stand up to those who are around us, who are pushing us down. He's going to give us the courage to get out of the situations that are bad for us. He's going to give us the courage to do things that we never thought we would be able to do. And at the end of it, people can see not only our faith, but they'll be able to see who God is. Gideon didn't let his background and his circumstances and his status hold him back. He was confident in God's plan and was courageous enough to follow it out all the way to the end, to where he had victory over the Midianites. He led his entire nation to victory over their enemies. And he became a leader of the nation and taking that nation back to God. So are you going to let your circumstances, are you going to let your status define you? Or are you going to be courageous enough to follow God, live out a faith for him, and through that show people who he is? Pray with me. God, we love you so much. There are times in our lives when we are outright terrified and afraid to do things, God. And sometimes courage just doesn't seem to be there. But God, I hope and I pray that each student here understands and learns that when they are following you, God, when they put their trust in you, God, that the places that you lead them, you're going to give them the courage to get through it, because they know that you have their back. And they're confident in the plan that you have for them, God. God, you love each and every one of these students here. You have a plan for each and every one of them, God. We ask that no matter where they're at, no matter their status, no matter where they put their faith other than you, God, that they will see you. They'll see the path that you have for them, God. And they will have the courage to follow it. We thank you. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen.